Okay, so if you're a React dev, you know the last year has been, well, a total whirlwind, right? We're seeing major releases drop one after another, and they're not just small updates. They are fundamentally changing how we build for the web. And all this constant evolution, it really boils down to one big critical question.
So let's really dig into this, because the answer is changing right before our eyes. The updates we're seeing aren't just minor tweaks. Nope. They represent a huge shift in what React even is, kind of blurring those old lines between the client and the server.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The pace has picked up a lot. This isn't your standard maintenance cycle. This is a very deliberate, very rapid push into brand new territory. So let's break down what's actually happening under the hood.
To get our heads around all this, we're going to cover 5 key areas. We'll start with React's next chapter and its big return to the server. Then we'll check out how it's making UI feedback feel effortless and just generally making life better for us developers. And finally, we'll take a little peek into the future of React. First up, what is probably the biggest paradigm shift we've seen in years, the server is officially back in a big, big way. And this is all about completely rethinking where your components actually live and run. The star of this whole show? Something called React Server Components.
So what in the world is a React Server Component, or RSC for short? Well, think of it as a brand new type of component that runs only on the server. The really key thing to get here is that its code and all its dependencies never ever get sent to the browser. What's the result? Tiny JavaScript bundles and way, way faster initial page loads. It's a game changer.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Hold on, isn't this just server-side rendering all over again? And you know what? That is a fantastic question. With old school SSR, yeah, you'd get that initial HTML from the server, but you still had to ship all the component JavaScript down to the client to make it interactive. The big deal with RSC is that the component code itself can actually stay on the server. It can rerun there without a full page load. This is a totally different ballgame. Of course, the moment your components can run on the server and talk directly to your database, you have to start thinking about security, like right away. You can't just have components making wild, uncontrolled queries, and that's exactly why the new best practice is to build a clear boundary, a dedicated data access layer. See, this pattern creates a really important separation. Your UI component basically calls this data access layer, which acts like a bouncer at a club. It checks your ID, your permissions, then it runs a safe, secure query. And here's the crucial part. It packages up the response into what's called a data transfer object, or DTO. That's just a fancy way of saying it's a clean data structure that only has the specific info that this user is actually allowed to see. Super important. Okay, let's move on to our next big shift. This one's all about how we handle changing data. You know, like submitting a form. React 19 gives us this new streamlined idea called actions that makes all that stuff, pending states, errors, UI feedback, feel practically automatic. You remember the old way, right? A simple form submission meant so much manual work. You'd have at least 3 useState hooks going, one for the form data itself, another for any errors that might pop up, and a third one just to track if it was loading. It was just a lot of boilerplate for a super common task.
And check this out. This is how much cleaner things are now with the new useActionState hook. When I first saw this, I was blown away by the simplicity. Just look at it. One single hook gives you everything you need: the error state, the function to trigger the submission, and that is pending Boolean. It just handles all that state management for you. It's a huge, huge win for developers.
And building on that whole idea of better feedback, React 19 also introduces Use Optimistic. It's a hook with one main purpose: to make your app feel lightning fast, even when it's waiting for a slow network.
Honestly, the best way to wrap your head around this is the TikTok like button analogy. Think about it. You tap that little heart icon and it fills in instantly. The UI doesn't sit there and wait for the server to say, "Yup, we got the like." It just optimistically assumes it's going to work and gives you that immediate gratification. The real request happens in the background, and if it fails for some reason, the UI just gracefully switches back. This is exactly what Use Optimistic lets you build, and it makes your app feel incredibly snappy.
So beyond these big architectural changes, React 19 is just stuffed with a ton of smaller but oh so welcome quality of life improvements. These are the little things that just make our day-to-day coding lives so much nicer. So here's a quick lightning round of the best ones. First, say goodbye to forward ref. Ref is just a regular prop now. The new React compiler automatically memoizes your code so you can stop wrapping everything in use memo. Context providers have a much cleaner syntax. Hydration errors actually tell you what went wrong now with a clear diff. And finally, You can render title and meta tags right inside your components. Seriously, every single one of these is a fantastic upgrade.
So what are people in the real world saying? Well, this quote from a developer on Reddit is pretty telling. They upgraded a production app on day one, and they said that after fixing a few early bugs, they honestly just forget they even upgraded, except for the fact that the whole site just feels snappier. That's about as good an endorsement as you can get.
But, it's important to keep a level head. Here's another user pointing out that, like with any big new release, the rest of the world needs a little time to catch up. Some of your favorite third-party libraries might not be fully compatible with React 19 just yet, so you might see some warnings or errors when you upgrade. It's a temporary headache, for sure, but definitely something to be aware of.
Okay, so we've heard from developers. We've looked at all these massive changes, server components, actions, the new compiler. What's the big picture here? Let's zoom out for a second and think about where React as a whole is actually going.
When you put all these pieces together, the direction is crystal clear. React is growing up. It's moving past its roots as just a UI library, and it's transforming into a genuine full-stack framework. This puts it in direct competition with tools like SvelteKit or Next because it's aiming to be the complete solution for building an entire application.
And this evolution is not slowing down. If we look ahead a bit, towards 2026, the ambition is huge. We're talking about deeper AI integration to create smarter UIs, clearer paths for Web3 and blockchain, a never-ending push for better performance, and an even tighter relationship with build tools like Vite and Next.js.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with React making this huge leap and the lines between the front end and back end getting blurrier by the day. What does it even mean to be a React developer anymore? The job description is changing right under our feet. It's not just about wrangling state in the browser now. It's about being an architect. It's about understanding data flow, thinking seriously about server security, and building these deeply integrated applications from end to end. It's definitely more complex, but it's also so much more powerful. So the real question I'll leave you with is, are you ready for what's coming next?